Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from Wedding Drama subreddit from the user Sorry I'm Not Italian, and says narcissistic mother-in-law expects us to send 50 plus invitations 54 days before the wedding. I've been asking her for a guest list for the last 10 months. We already invited the friends and family of hers that we know of, but my family has always been completely disconnected from her side of the family, to the point that he doesn't know anyone's names. I asked every month for any additional names and addresses we might have missed. I told her the latest date, December 31st. I can add to the guest list so I can get enough invitations printed and envelopes printed. I didn't get a guest list until March 3rd, and it has over 50 people. I simply didn't have enough envelopes. So my fiance and I looked through all the names and invited only the people he actually knew. Now, she is furious that we didn't invite all of her third cousins 2 times removed, the son of a friend who we have never met, and people whose names we have never even heard of. I'm convinced that she is just going to tell people when and where it is, and we're going to have to turn these people away. My fiance has been trying to deal with it, but she refuses to talk to him and insists on only talking to me. She feels that she can just bulldoze me because I'm not comfortable arguing with her. So she's been harassing me non-stop. She keeps saying, I'll pay for everyone's plate, I'll pay for them. Bitch, that's not the problem. It's fucking tacky and disrespectful. Also, you don't have a job. How are you paying for anything? On top of all of that, she hates everything about the wedding we've planned. Hates our photographer, our venue, my dress, his suit, our caterer, everything. She told me and my parents the other day that no one will take our marriage seriously because it's not being officiated by a representative of God. Okay then, you narcissistic bitch, don't come. You and your family can have your own religious circle jerk at your church. Everyone will be so much happier. This feels to me, it's one of those situations where if you don't put the proper boundaries in place now, she's going to keep stomping over your life choices time and time again. New houses, family events, possible children. She will not change unless something is put in place right at this moment. And I would be telling your husband that needs to come from him at the same time. Yes, you said he's talked to her, but she's ignoring you. He can simply say, no, stop doing that now. Stop going to my fiance and talk to me, and we're only inviting the people that we said on the list. End of, or you can simply not come as well. But Dogs and Cats World 1000 says, and quotes, my fiance has always been completely disconnected from her side of the family. She refuses to talk to him. Then Dog says, so how would your fiance feel about uninviting her? Dangerous Ant says, I hope you password protect with all the vendors, or you might have something cancelled. I'm a total B-word, so I wouldn't have printed invitations or invited anyone past the deadline. You need security for the wedding and reception with guest lists. And no one else allowed. Mother-in-law wouldn't be the first to invite people behind your back. Opie says, oh believe me, all of the vendors are well aware and are already planning to have security check people in and make sure no one acts out of line. Ginger says, block her. Tell your fiance you are not dealing with his insane mother. Extra people can't come. You aren't changing a damn thing for her. Hire security. Have a day of planner checking people off. Have passwords for your vendors. Bad Bandit says, what did the poor wedding photographer do to her? Seriously, you have a decision to make. Your fiance needs to put her in her place now or suffer a lifetime of having to put up with her shenanigans. She's not bringing anything positive to the table. What's it going to be? Opie says, our photographer specializes in candid moments and film photography. Mother-in-law wanted a more formal photographer, but we loathe formality. And one more comment from Fibromite who says, look at yourself in the mirror and practice saying, no, we're not discussing this. Talk to your son if you must, and tell your fiance that his mother is his responsibility, and you are no longer dealing with a special brand of batshittery. Batshittery. Next time she says anything negative about your wedding, tell her she is more than welcome to decline her invitation, or you will just rescind it. And again, tell your fiance that he has to deal with her from now on. So OP comes in with their update and says, "Hi again, pals. If you haven't read the first post, you can read it here," and then shared the link and says, "We are currently at 29 days to go. Our SVP deadline was 2 days ago, but we've had to chase down a few people, of course. So just to answer a few questions from my last post. I couldn't print more invitations to accommodate her guests because I went through a friend who is a very talented letterpress designer. She is incredible and does everything by hand. Her attention to detail has been absolutely stunning. I wanted this event to help boost my friend's small business, which it really has. Yay! Her process is rather time consuming, and ordering the specific paper and invitations takes at least a week. The whole printing process took about 3 weeks total, and with the timeline my mother-in-law left me, that just wasn't possible. Aesthetics is important to me regarding the paper details, as I am also a designer. I'm not telling guests to wear a specific color or anything like that, but in regard to the specific details from my vendors, I have a very clear vision. Finally, yes, I foresaw issues with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, who was diagnosed bipolar type 2 and borderline personality disorder. And last I heard 2 years ago, she hates me. So hiring security was literally the first thing I did after signing the contract with the venue. All vendors know that the only people who can make changes are me and my fiancé. No, I cannot disinvite my mother-in-law because while she is not specifically contributing financially, her husband, estranged but still married, weird I know, is contributing the majority of the finances for the entire weekend's events. Father-in-law wants nothing to do with the drama, doesn't give a fuck about his wackadoodle wife and daughter or any of the drama. He just wants to impress and get drunk with his hunting buddies at the wedding. So, on to the update. Just this past week, with 34 days to go, my future mother-in-law sent a photo of wedding invitations she had printed and had mailed out to an additional 60 people. The insanity of the action and the logistical headache she is causing me and my venue, catering, security, and rental team aside, the invitations are heinous. Like, they're similar, I guess, to our original, but the vibe, the color, the execution is just so wrong. My invites are understated, cute, a little flirty, and kind of retro. Hers are poorly designed, stuffy, outdated bullshit. The fonts are so ugly and incompatible with one another. The tone of red is awful. I know this complaint is so not important, yet my overexhausted, overwhelmed, and fucking over it ass is just so disgusted by both her behavior and the design execution. The thing is, my grandma died this last Saturday, and my fiance and I had to make an emergency trip to attend her funeral. Skipping it was not an option for me. I love my grandma so much. She was with my grandfather for over 70 years. They met in their teens. He is absolutely devastated. I just can't help but think about the strange dissonance of planning this wedding and caring so much about stupid things. Meanwhile, the longest relationship I have ever known, the foundation of what I understand as a lasting, loving, respectful marriage, has been temporarily divided by death. On top of that, work is amping up to be insanely busy right now. I'll have to be out of town for the next 2 weeks, and most of my days will be 12 to 14-hour days helping to facilitate massive events. I had planned for this as I knew well in advance that it would happen, but I didn't account for all the bullshit and loss that has happened. And of course, when it rains, it pours. My partner and I found out last week that we will have to move immediately after the wedding, so we've been scrambling to coordinate that. I don't want to, but life loves its curveballs. I just can't bring myself to care enough to do anything about my mother-in-law's behavior. I can't bring myself to care about finalizing anything for the wedding, even though it's the final stretch. The thing I'm most sad about, other than my grandparents of course, is that I was so excited to plan my wedding. I actually look forward to being frazzled about wedding stuff. I worked as an assistant wedding planner in the past, for Christ's sake. I didn't hire a wedding planner. I did hire a day of coordinator, thank God. Because all the wedding planners I spoke with ended up telling me, honestly, I don't think you need my services. You've done everything already. I've been planning my wedding since I was in middle school. I've always dreamed of how fun and hectic and wild and joyful this process would be. Up until this point, the whole wedding planning process has been such a lovely bonding experience for my fiancé and I was feeling so good about it. Now I'm just too spent and exhausted for the final stretch to even really care. And that breaks my heart. When people ask how it's going, all I can think to say is, Who knows? Didn't expect this update to go like this when I first started writing, but now I'm crying, so I'm gonna stop. Thank you for listening. Dew Yogurt says to the OP after this one, her child should be handling her, not you. She needs to be stopped. Show security the real invitation and to bar entry to anyone with a fake. She can explain her overstepping and entitlement to her invitees. OP said, I said this in another comment. He's doing his absolute best to deal with her and to pick up the pieces of me crumbling. He's also been dealing with a massive, life-altering personal crisis since January that isn't even detailed in the post. We're both trying our hardest right now. I'm so grateful for everything he is doing to support me right now, and he tells me every day that he feels the same. And there was comments saying, what the fuck, you gonna let these extra guests into your wedding? OP sort of replied after a couple of comments and said, I'm just letting my fiance deal with his mother. Any of the extra people we're able to contact and the caterer. If they're allowed in, fine. I simply do not have the capacity to care at this point. We did communicate with security that there will be a guest list at the gate, so no one not approved by us will not be permitted. Beyond that, I don't know. Nerd replies to the OP and says, you have a list of the people, right? It'd be incredibly rude to let them think they got a real invite when you know they didn't. You need to reach out to each of them and tell them the truth. You have limited capacity. Mother-in-law is not contributing financially to the wedding and she invited you without our knowledge. We're not speculating on her motives, but we wanted to make sure you didn't spend time and money preparing for a closed event. ETA, your mother-in-law is pushing boundaries and seeing what she can get away with. If you don't nuclear bomb shut her down now, then this will be the rest of your life. She's gonna try and ruin the wedding. Uninvite her. Someone relates to OP saying, I've been there with a mother-in-law like this and their biggest regret was not setting boundaries from the beginning. OP replied saying, we've discussed it and going forward we are limiting contact with her as much as possible. I don't ever want to tell him who he can or cannot have in his life, but I did tell him that she will not have access to me for the foreseeable future. She's actually much worse for his mental health than mine, and he is talking about fully cutting contact with her. Her narcissism has gone too far. The wedding drama has been the final straw for him, but his ongoing personal crisis he's experiencing is the crux of his tentative decision to go no contact. Fortunately, we don't live super close to her, and neither of us want children. That was very important for us to confirm before marriage. 60 people turning up to your wedding that you wasn't expecting. That's absolute madness, and I can't imagine the expense with that as well. And I know this is going to be very, very easy for me to say because I can clearly see just from reading that post how exhausted OP is from dealing with this. She just sounds like, fuck it, whatever happens, happens at this point. But I really suggest that she takes some of the advice and just tells these people, if she knows who they are, that, sorry, mother-in-law is the one that's caused all this, and just be done with that mother-in-law. Uninvite her. Be done with it. Sit back and just think about, in your mind, about what she is doing. She's making these decisions. She sat somewhere thinking about this. She knows she's overstepping and she's choosing to do so. That's her choice, and there are consequences for those choices. And make sure she faces them. But what do you guys make of this one? I will certainly look out for an update on this because I really do hope that you don't end up with 60 extra people. What's your thoughts on this one? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from the Best of No Updates subreddit. It's from Up the Mountain in Peru. And it says, my friends have a secret Dungeons and Dragons campaign where they play out different scenarios of me dying. I really don't even know where to start with this. I, 18 female, have a group of 6 close friends, all my age. One of my friends used to DM for our school's D&D club, but ended up quitting. We started our own little group/campaign at the end of junior year, grade 11, with said friend acting as our DM, and it was a total blast. I'd never played before, but I was so excited to learn and play the game with my closest friends. Our last session was in early January, and because of our exams coming up right after, we didn't have a chance to play before the pandemic hit and lockdown started. A couple of weeks ago, my city moved into the next stage of reopening, so my friends and I decided to get together to catch up with each other and play D&D again. We met at our DM's house, had dinner, and then just sat around talking for a bit. I eventually got a bit antsy and decided to grab my character sheet. We'd all left ours with the Dungeon Master at our last session, so I grabbed his character guidebook off the table and started rifling through the papers to find mine. I couldn't find mine, so I went through them again, and then I noticed that none of these were the same characters we had been playing with. Out of curiosity, I flipped a couple of the sheets over. Each sheet had dozens of hypothetical deaths written out, with my real name in all of them. OP is fatally stabbed by orcs. OP is lured into a cave, trapped with various beasts, and eaten. OP is tied to a boulder and sunk in the river. OP is chained to a fence and used as bait for wolves. It went on and on and on. I didn't know what to do. I was so shocked and caught off guard. I felt like the whole room was closing in on me. I couldn't breathe or see anything, so I just put the papers back where I found them and went to the bathroom for a few minutes. I texted my dad and asked him to come get me, and told my friends that there was a family emergency, so I couldn't stay to play. As soon as I got in my dad's car, I started crying. I told my dad what had happened, and he didn't even know what to say. When we got home, he tucked me into bed and told me we'd talk about it in the morning with clear heads. The next morning I texted them saying I wasn't speaking to them and then blocked them. Since then, our other mutual friends have been texting me, telling me my friends asked them to reach out and try to get me to unblock them. One even showed up at my house, but my dad didn't even let them get out of their car. I don't know what to do. I feel like I've been totally betrayed and lied to. My boyfriend has been trying to get a hold of me, but I haven't been responding because I don't know if I can trust him either. These were my closest friends, people who know everything about me, and they've been having fun imagining different ways I could die. I don't know what I could have done to make them want to do something like this. They've always been extremely supportive and loving, so this is so out of character that it feels like a surreal dream. Should I talk to them about it, or not even bother and just move on? I feel like the whole world is ending and I can't do anything to stop it. Edits, I just want to add that I am the only person whose real name was used, and there was no other notes on the other part of gameplay. Only notes about me dying. Little Duck says to the OP, I'm actually against you talking it out with them. This is a group of people. They're in this together and will more than likely defend themselves and each other. You're outnumbered and outgunned. I would just cut my losses. Your dad is handling this well and taking care of you. Also, if your boyfriend knew about this, he's a piece of shit and should be broken up with. OP says my boyfriend had no idea. He doesn't hang out with my friends unless I'm there. Little Duck says to him, why avoid him? Take comfort and support from those who love and care about you. OP says I'm just shaken up and freaked out, but I will talk to him soon. Even Spoonier says, if you can bring yourself to talk to them, then I will suggest doing so. Find out what happened. This may have been only one in a series of sessions devoted to each of you, which would make this considerably less horrendous. Not zero, but still a big improvement. But if you can't, then you can't. And I don't think it'd be fair of anyone to hold this against you, because holy shit, this is creepy. OP says the writing on each paper varied. Different color ink, different pencil, etc. So it looked like it was probably a reoccurring thing. Look, I've only played D&D probably once or twice in my lifetime. And so basically I'm saying I ain't got very much experience in it. But for me, it sounds like OP has been playing it for a long time and they're freaked out. And that's enough for me, you know? Just imagining being in OP's position for a second that, you know, you innocently look for your character sheet and you find detailed descriptions of your own death. Not your character's death, but your death with your actual name written dozens of times. That would be freaky. But I'm someone, for me, and this is literally from my point of view, it doesn't sound like OP has that same mindset, but for me, I'd want to know why. Even, you know, that last comment was absolutely right, that it's a group of people, they all have each other's backs, etc. They may have come up with their own story behind this. In my brain, I always like to know what they're actually thinking, so I would want to know why. I might not still talk to them afterwards, absolutely, but I want to know why. And once again, that's just from my point of view. But Cardinal also says, as someone who's been a dungeon master for my personal group of friends, what the actual fuck? This isn't just terrible, it's downright creepy. When I used to write stories, I was very, very vivid in what I tried to imagine for a campaign or one shot. With that said, them doing that is inconceivable. At that point, I'd be worried about your safety. Still says, wow, don't even know where to start here. I'd be interested in hearing what they have to say, but quite honestly, I don't think they deserve the time of day. Truly horrible. Bit confusing as to why they invited you back though. You'd think they wouldn't if they felt so strongly. And a lot of people pointing out that it could be a potentially dangerous situation. Holy moly, what do you guys make of this one? What do you think? Do you think there's another explanation for what was going on? That's creepy. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. Now, I was going to end the video there, but there's this story that I've noticed, and it's been in my mind for a couple of days. It's just such a story that's so out there. And I'm not sure where it fitted, but I wanted to include it, so I'm going to include it in the end of this one. It's weird. Throwaway soup tube who says, my 25 female boyfriend, 25 male, keeps asking me to invest in a soup tube business idea, and I'm not sure how to deal with it. I've been living with my boyfriend for about 7 months. 2 weeks ago, he sat me down and presented a PowerPoint presentation with his business idea. I knew he'd been working on an idea, but he didn't want to tell me about it until it was finished. Based on his enthusiasm and his prior seemingly intelligent nature, I thought maybe it'd be a pretty cool idea. Instead, he presented to me an idea about soup tubes. The idea, if you can call it that, is to construct a series of tubes throughout our city that leads up to centralized soup kitchens. For a monthly subscription, a customer can subscribe to a tube of soup, and a tube extension will be built off the nearest mainline tube and directly into the customer's apartment or home. Based on subscription level, that would determine the quantity of soup a customer could pour and how many types of soup. The tubes are basically the size of pipes, like you might see under a sink, but he insisted that it must be called soup tube, not soup pipe. Tube just zings better. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. First, I asked if he was crank yanking me or something, but he was completely sincere. Obviously, the idea is completely insane. The notion that the city would authorize somebody to construct a series of tubes everywhere that carry soup into homes is of course ludicrous. And even if such an initiative were approved, the cost of such an operation would be ridiculous. You'd have to charge outrageous prices for customers to install and subscribe to a soup tube. And who would pay for such a service when canned soup costs like $1 or $2? Or you can buy soup from a restaurant for a few dollars. I explained these things as politely as I could, but he dismissed them and all and said that tube-based soup delivery is the wave of the future. He then asked me how much I wanted to invest. I told him nothing, and he looked absolutely heartbroken. Since then, almost every day he's asked again for me to invest and keeps trying to sell me on the idea. He's also doing the same thing to a lot of his friends. It started to drive me up the wall. First, I'm at a loss as to how he can believe such a stupid idea is worthwhile. Second, it is really goddamn annoying to be asked on a daily basis to invest in a system of soup tubes. And third, I am also concerned for his sanity, other than his apparent obsession with this, though he has shown no other signs. I would like some advice as to how I can reason with him, or whether I should even continue this relationship. And, obviously I'm not a doctor and I couldn't help but, is there something mentally going on with this as well? Because it's just such a wild idea. And to be taking it seriously, trying to get your friends and family to invest in it. I mean, the logistics in itself had me just thinking over and over again. The way it was explained, it's not like a packet of soup traveling through a pipe or something. It's like the pipes would have to be constantly filled with soup, pressurized so they could pour it constantly. And we're talking about city-wide based here. How much soup is being made constantly? It's not like you can just chuck a liter of soup down the pipe and it'll end up in Joe's apartment in the city. You have to pump the rest of it through to get it to his apartment. And what if Joe fancies a different flavor of soup? Is there going to be multiple pipes? You can't just shove multiple soups in one pipe willy-nilly. That's madness. But what do you guys make of this situation? Would you invest in the soup tube? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories. Your love, your support, your time, it always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.